Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled EU MDR Compliance Requirements from the Vigilance Perspective. My name is Sonia Hunt, and it's my pleasure to be your X Talks moderator for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit questions and comments for our speakers throughout the presentation by using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. Now, this chat box is located in the control panel, and that's found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you require assistance, please contact me at any time by sending me a message using that chat panel. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and made available to you for future streaming on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank Veranex, who developed the content for this presentation. Veranex Data Management and Analytics offers EDC builds, clinical data management, statistical programming and biostatistics, pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance, medical writing and regulatory publishing, and data aggregation and visualization services. Their reliable global data management ecosystem allows them to ensure a high-quality, deliverable, and superior value. CROs, big pharma, biotech companies, and medtech companies trust Veranex to be their data management and analytics partner. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to your speakers for today's webinar. And first, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Arek Shrestha. He is Veranex's Senior Manager and Head of Drug Safety Device Vigilance, managing pharmacovigilance PV support for clinical post-marketing PV projects. And there he is. Arek has over a decade of experience in the PV services industry, where he has worked in multidisciplinary cross-functional teams and helped set up and manage PV requirements for small, mid-size, and large pharma and medical device companies for global regulatory requirements. So there he is. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to your second speaker, and she is Dr. Garima Tripathi, and she's a senior drug safety physician at Veranex, and she has more than half a decade of experience in the pharmacovigilance services industry with extensive experience in pharmacovigilance and device vigilance for both clinical and post-marketing activities. She also provides great insight in signal detection and literature review activities. So there she is. Now, before I pass the mic over to Arek, we have our first poll question for our audience members to engage in, and that's going to be appearing on your screen right now. And there it is. And it's a simple question for you. Now, this poll question is done in real time, so your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated. So the question is, how long have you worked with medical device vigilance activities? Is it 10 to 15 years, or is it 5 to 10, or is it 1 to 5 years, or is it the final one here? Do not currently work with medical device vigilant activities. Please go ahead and cast your vote. And once you've done that, I am going to close the polls in a few seconds and share the results with everyone. So please go ahead and participate and cast your votes now. Thank you. Okay, that looks like it's the majority of our audience members who have cast their votes, so I thank you for that. Now I'm going to close the polls and let's take a look at the results. Okay, so here are the results for our poll question. We have in our audience 11% said 10 to 15 years, while we had 17% of our audience members say 5 to 10 years, and then we have 40% that said 1 to 5 years, while the remaining 32% said not currently working with medical device vigilant activities. So thank you everyone for participating in our poll question. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Arek. So Arek, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Sonia. Good morning and good evening to all the attendees. I look forward to an engaging and fruitful session, and I hope at the end of the session, you will have a good understanding of vigilance requirements aligned to the new MDR. I'll start with an overview of the MDR requirements for device vigilance. The new MDR regulations on medical devices became applicable in May 2021 and are meant to improve the safety, reliability, and transparency of information for medical devices in the EU medical device market. Now, this MDR replaces the existing directives for medical devices, which were namely 93/42/EEC and 90/385/EEC. Many stakeholders in this sector, including manufacturers and service providers, have had a tough time to implement the new directives within the given timeline, even though we have been provided the notifications since 2017. All I can say is we are still learning as we align these new directives to our clinical investigation and post-marketing surveillance activities. So if anybody says that they are fully aware of the MDR and its implementation, turn around and immediately walk away. Jokes apart, I think the picture is getting clearer and clearer as we work on the directives, which comes from real-world implementation experiences for us. Also, it is important to logically implement the guidelines, taking the best approach possible in case something is not clear to interpretation. So now these new MDR guidelines, they had two main objectives with which they were implemented. One, to ensure smooth functioning of the internal market as regards to medical devices, taking as a base a high level of protection of health for patients and users. And number two, it sets high standards on quality and safety for medical devices in order to meet common safety concerns as regards to such products. Now, both the objectives are inseparable and are being pursued simultaneously, and none of them are secondary to each other. Both of them are aligned, with equal importance. So here I will want to talk about the Medical Device Coordination Group, the MDCG. The MDCG drafted a range of documents to assess stakeholders in applying the EU MDR. Most documents are endorsed by the MDCG in accordance with Article 105 of the MDR and Article 99 of the IVDR. Although these documents are not legally binding, but they break down the regulations and provide such detailed guideline on each regulation of MDR. So that's a good starting point in case you want to, further understand or go in depth into the medical device MDR regulations. Now, this MDR regulation or the guideline which has come in is very vast. It has over 123 articles. It has 7 annexures, and it deals with various rules and regulation on medical devices. But in today's session, we will be focusing on the vigilance or the case processing aspects and related requirements and alignment in perspective to the EU MDR. With that, we will move to the next slide, which is poll question, I believe. Over to you, Sonia.
Certainly. Thank you so much for that. We are now going to launch our second poll question, everyone. And there you go. It's a simple one. Are you aware of the MDCG guideline? Is it a yes or a no? So please go ahead and cast your vote, and then I'll close the polls and share the results, and we'll get right back to RA. Okay, since that was a quick one, we'll close the polls now. No need to keep it open as we look like we have the majority of our audience have cast their votes. Whoops, hold on. I'll have to wait a few more seconds here. A few more people are now joining in to do that. Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for participating in poll question number 2. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, so here are the results for poll question number 2. In our audience, they have said 60%, or actually 67% has said yes, while 33% have said no. So thank you everyone for participating in poll question number 2. Now back to Arik.
Thank you, Sonia. And that's a good number of our audience who are aware of on the MDCG guidelines. That's good to know. All right. So now we'll be focusing or discussing on the aspects of the medical device vigilance versus how it compares with the pharmacovigilance, which most of us certainly are aware of or have been working for a longer time on the pharmacovigilance aspects. So many of us are quite familiar on the pharmacovigilance aspects dealing with the drugs. More or less similar principle applies while dealing with device cases. However, the nature of assessment and the reporting requirements vary significantly. While device vigilance activities are different and require niche expertise, There are few basic similarities in terms of safety database, workflows, setup, infrastructure, as you can see on the screen. However, the reports, how they are assessed and how they are reported is completely different. It's different altogether. And we'll be discussing in detail about them in the next sections. But just talking about the similarities a little bit more, let's look at some of the basic similarities. Safety database, yes, we need a safety database with device case processing reporting capabilities. Common safety databases like ISG, Argus, they have the capability to manage the device related cases. Workflow, yes, device reports also run through the regular workflow pattern of intake, triage, data entry, quality review, medical review, and the reporting. Infrastructure, the basic requirements remains the same. The administrative requirements remain the same. Tracking, coordination with the clinical investigation site, safety management plan, the documentation in terms of SAE, pregnancy forms, consent forms, and all those related aspects remain similar to how PV is managed. But as I said, the major differences lies in the causality assessment, clinical reporting requirements, and the post-marketing reporting requirements. So now in the next few slides, we'll be talking in depth about these differences and how they differentiate or how important they are while we process or we manage these device related cases. With that, I think we need to go to the next slide, which is again a poll question. Over to
Okay,
you,
and I'm
Sonia.
no problem jumping in to do our third poll question. And there it is, everyone. So the third question is, what would the causality assessment include for an injection site reaction 30 seconds after a subcutaneous injection? So is it certain or not related? So please go ahead and cast your votes. Oh, wow. Okay, everyone has cast their vote. That was quick. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I'm now going to close the polls and take a look at the results. Okay, so 100% of our audience said certain. I guess I'd like to know what the answer is. Now back to you.
Thank you, Sonia. With that, I'll like to hand it over to Dr. Garima, who will be taking this section.
Okay. Garima was wondering, what do you think about the results of that poll question? Garima, are you there?
Hello.
There
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
I'm there. I'm so sorry, but yeah, I am just glad that the audience is aware about causality assessment and they answered it correctly. It is
Mhm.
correct. It is certain for sure. And in the coming slides, I'll be talking more about the causality assessment. So to understand causality assessment of medical device, it involves evaluating the likelihood and strength of a causal relationship between the use of the device and any other adverse event or outcome experienced by the patient. This involves a systemic review of available data such as clinical studies, post-marketing surveillance report, and individual case reports to identify any potential cause factors and assess their impact on it. So why is causality assessment important? It is important to minimize the suffering of the patient from the adverse reaction. And so there is an establishment of a causal relationship done between the device and their adverse event. It is the assessment of the relationship between the treatment and the occurrence of the adverse event. It also allows to evaluate and to check that a particular treatment is the cause of an adverse event or not. The objective of causality assessment are to provide a relationship between the device and the event, and it plays an important role too in signal detection and evaluating the ADR reports in the early warning system for regulatory purposes. Causality assessment also plays a crucial role in assessing the risk benefit profiles of drug and devices. So, how do we assess causality assessment? It is basically done on 4 cardinal principles. That is, the first one is the temporal relationship between the device and the reaction. The second is the biological possibility that the drug has with or the device has with the event. Then is the challenge, which is the response on withdrawing of the device or the drug. And the fourth is re-challenge, which is the response on re-administration of the drug or the device. So in the next slide, we'll talk about the basic structural difference that leads to the different type of causality assessment. So as we know that drug is basically a small molecule that is being administered into our body and it interacts with various receptors to provide the desired result. Whereas when we talk about devices, these are physical objects designed to perform a specific function such as delivering the therapeutic agent or supporting a damaged organ or a tissue. And thus, they require different approaches for causality assessment. So, we have various methods for causality assessment. The first one is expert judgment or global introspection. It is a process in which an expert expresses judgment about possible drug causation by considering available data relevant to a suspected adverse reaction. The second one is algorithm based, which consists of a problem specific flowchart with step by step instruction on how to arrive at an answer. It gives a structured and a standardized method of assessment in a systemic approach. So, the assessment of areas based on the parameters such as the time of onset of the adverse reaction or the temporal sequence, whether the previous history of the adverse reaction or the medical history of the patient, whether the subject had a positive or negative re-challenge or a de-challenge. Coming to the last method that is based on probability, it studies the prior probability and the posterior probability. The prior probability is calculated from the epidemiological information, and thus these probability-based method allow us a simultaneous assessment of multiple causes. In the next slide, we'll talk more about the various levels of causality assessment. Yeah. So most common is the causal relationship, but apart from this, there are other levels of causality assessment, which are firstly is not related, which means when there is no temporal relationship, as when this means that there is no definite timeline that can be estimated for the event or the device to occur. There is no biological possibility. There is no positive or negative de-challenge or re-challenge. Coming to the next one, that is possible. In this, the relationship with the use of the investigational device or the relationship with the procedure is weak, but it cannot be ruled out completely. This is possible causality. The next one is probable, which means that the relationship with the use of the investigational device seems relevant and the event cannot be reasonably explained by any other cause. So that can be considered as probable causality. Coming to the next one, that is unlikely, which is when we have limited information regarding the relationship between the device and the event. The last one that we'll be talking about is causal relationship, and the serious adverse event is associated in this scenario with the investigational device beyond a reasonable doubt, and when the event is a known side effect of the product the category of the device belongs to. And to establish a causal relationship, we have to understand or we have to find certain criterias, and these are that we have to know the underlying disease, the concomitant medication, whether it's related to the device, whether it is related to the procedure, whether it is related to the surgery the patient is undergoing, and to avoid these situations, to establish the correct establish a correct relationship, all efforts should be made to define it correctly. Yeah. So from this, we'll be moving forward to the next polling question. Sonia, yeah.
Certainly. Thank you so much. Okay, here's our poll question number 4. You should see it appear on your screen now. Okay, and what would the causality assessment include for breast cancer diagnosed 3 years after breast implant insertion? Is it unlikely, not related, or causal relationship? So please go ahead and cast your vote by clicking on any of the below there. And there you go. Sorry about that. There you go, audience members. You can go ahead and cast your votes now. Okay, I'll leave a few more seconds for everyone to participate in this poll as it's done in real time, and then I'll be closing the polls and sharing the results, and then we'll get right back into the discussion. Okay, that looks like it's the majority of our audience have now participated in poll question number 4. I'm now going to close the polls and take a look at the results. So thank you everyone for participating. Okay, so here are the polls results, and we have in our audience 42% are saying unlikely, while 2% said not related, and 56% said causal relationship. So thank you everyone for participating in that poll question. Garima, before you continue, would you like to comment on the results of that poll question?
Yeah, definitely, Sonia. So I know that was a tricky one, but as I had explained it, so to define a relationship, that is for causality assessment, we have to have the information regarding the medical history, concomitant medications, the patient's past history. And in this scenario where we had limited information, it'll be mostly considered as unlikely. Yeah, that's the
Unlikely.
correct
Okay.
answer. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Back to you.
Welcome. Yeah. And moving forward, Dr. Arik will be talking about the reporting timelines in clinical investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garima. That was quite insightful. All right. So now let's look at the reporting timelines. And we have divided it into 2 slides. One, because the reporting timelines are different in clinical investigations and different in post-marketing setup. So let's, first start with the clinical investigations. So the sponsor must report to all the NCAs where the clinical investigation is authorized to start. And for all reportable events which indicate an imminent risk of death, serious injury, or serious illness, and that requires prompt remedial action for other patients or subjects, users or other persons, or a new finding to it, the reporting timeline is immediately but not later than 2 calendar days after awareness by the sponsor of a new reportable event or of a new information in relationship with an already reported event. This also includes events that are of significant and unexpected nature, such that they become an alarming as a potential health hazard. It also includes possibility of multiple deaths occurring at short intervals. So those are dealt with in field safety corrective actions, and there are other reporting methods. But since we are talking today about majorly about the clinical case processing and the related aspects, we'll stick to this as of now. So these concerns may be identified either by NCAs or the manufacturers, what I told about the potential public health hazard or multiple deaths occurring at a short interval. Now, apart from that, any other reportable event or a new finding or update to it, it has to be reported within 7 calendar days following the date of awareness by the sponsor of the new reportable event, or new information, any new information which has come into the relationship with the already reported event. Now, there may be a question which may come to your mind, looking at the extremely short reporting timeline of 2 calendar days for SAEs or cases which have imminent risk of death or serious injury or serious illness. So the question would be how do we need to take action and make sure that we are compliant with the authority with the reporting timelines. So a proper plan needs to be documented in the safety management plan. We do prepare a safety management plan for clinical investigations in the device setup as well. And that should entail the stepwise action plan on the modus operandi from the SAE awareness date till the reporting is complete to the authorities, right from the site to the sponsor, the device case processing team, the reporting, regulatory team, everybody should be made aware, and that action plan has to be clearly documented in the SMP safety management plan to make sure that we are abiding by or, sticking to the timelines which are mentioned here on the clinical investigations. That's very important. And, a lot of people do miss out on that while preparing the SMP, but, that is an important aspect, which we should always be careful of. Coming to the next slide. Which is now reporting of the incident, in the post-marketing setup, post-marketing scenario. So manufacturers of device made available in the European Union market, other than investigational devices, shall report to the relevant competent authorities in accordance with the articles and the details specified in the MDR. In the event of death or an unanticipated serious deterioration in a person's state of health, the report shall be provided immediately after the manufacturers have established, or as soon as it is, a suspected causal relationship has been established between the device and the serious incident, but no later than 10 calendar days after the date of which the manufacturers became aware, or the awareness date of the serious incident. And then, the second category is for the serious incident immediately. Any other serious incident, manufacturers shall report immediately after they have established the causal relationship between the incident and their device, or such causal relation is reasonably possible. In those scenarios, it has to be reported within 15 calendar days after the awareness. So this was in the post-marketing scenario. Now I will hand it over to Sonia again for the next poll question.
Thank you, Arik. And yes, this is our final poll question, audience members. I'm going to launch it now. And there you go. Okay, so our final poll question is, how many medical device SAE submissions in the EU region have you been involved in? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, or is it 5 or more? So please go ahead and cast your votes. Your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated. And I'll leave this poll open for another 10 seconds so that everyone can participate by just clicking on any of the below. And then I will close the polls, share the results, and get right back to Arik. Okay, Arik, it looks like we have our majority of our audience members have cast their votes. I'm just leaving a few more seconds as there's a few more people here just finishing up. Okay, and that looks like it's it. So thank you, everyone. I'm now going to close the polls and take a look at the results. Okay, so Arik, we have in our audience 52% that said 1, we have 9% that said 2, and then another 9% that said 3. We have 6% of the audience saying 4, and then the remaining 24% that said 5 or more. So thank you everyone for participating in our final poll question, and now I pass it back over to Arik.
Thank you, Sonia. Looks like majority of the attending team members here, they are somehow in one way or another have been involved into the submissions aspect, which is good to know, and which will kind of help them further understand. Hopefully, I think this session, in terms of the reporting timelines, which has been displayed here in terms of and in alignment with the EU MDR. So this slide is just a summary of what I have said on the reporting requirements. There's a lot. If you go through the MDR guideline, there's a lot of articles with which you have to filter through. But this is a gist of it to understand the requirements on the clinical investigation and the post-marketing front. So as I said, on the clinical investigation side, it's 2 and 7 calendar days. Reporting format is something which is very important to know in terms of clinical investigations. There is a clinical investigation safety summary safety reporting form, or the CISSR form, which is available, which is being used currently to report to the NCAs, the national competent authorities. In the post-marketing side, the timelines are 10 and 15 calendar days. And here we use the manufacturer incident report form, the MIR form 2020. It came in 2020. The MIR form is usually integrated. You can generate it like a SIOMS or a MedWatch form from the safety database, Argus or RSG. It has to be kind of configured there, and then the reporting requirements can be taken care of with that. While the clinical investigations summary safety reporting form is kind of a manual form, which is again available at on the EU website, that needs to be used for the clinical investigation. As of now, both of these methods, which are the formatting, reporting format, and the reports, these are the temporary requirements which have been laid down. Finally, down the line, once EUDAMED is fully functional, which is the portal where all the device reporting will happen, and it has more to it. EUDAMED is kind of vast again. It not only deals with device vigilance, other aspects as well. So once EUDAMED is fully functional, the reporting has to be in the way of the web form on the EUDAMED portal, both I think in the clinical investigation and post-marketing scenario. That's what is going to happen, and I believe there will be integrations and other electronic reporting capabilities which are being worked upon. So, but yeah, for now, this is how this has to be done. Now, apart from these reports, as I told, for the case processing, since we are today, the focus is on the case processing and reporting. There are other, various reports also which needs to be looked at. There is a PSUR, there are trend reports, there are field safety corrective action, there are post-marketing surveillance reports. But yeah, there's a lot to the MDR, as I have already said, and then we need to look at one perspective at one time. So for today's session, we'll restrict to the case processing part to understand fully what are the requirements. So that's in front of your screen, and that's about it. So with that, I would like to say a thank you, and I hope this session was kind of informative for everybody who has attended, and it was kind of useful for everybody. With that, I'll hand it over back to Sonia.
Well, thank you very much, Arik and Garima, for that great presentation, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And now we're going to begin the Q&A portion of the webinar, and with that, we'll put on our webcams. So we'll invite our speakers to put on their webcams. Hi, everyone. There I am. So remember, audience members, to continue sending your questions by using that questions window that's located on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to address your questions during the time that we have together. So Arik and Grima, here we go. Here's our first question. Let me get here. So what is the current reporting method and transition to reporting via EUDAMED? This audience member is asking. Who would like to take that question?
I'll take that question, Sonia. Thank you for that. And it's a good question. And as I was saying in the last slide, the reporting has to be done through EUDAMED. A new template, the clinical investigation safety summary report, as I said, in the clinical investigation scenario, needs to be used. The reports needs to go to the NCAs, in which the national competent authorities, in the region which the clinical investigation is being performed. And in the post-marketing setup, it is the manufacturer's incident report form again that should be used. And as I said, it could be directly generated from the database, safety database. So that's how it has to be generated. Reporting format is currently requirement. How we report currently is kind of in transition. Once the EUDAMED is fully available and functional, the obligation and requirements that relate to performing safety reporting with EUDAMED will apply. And as I said, web form will be used for reporting all those event serious incidents or SAEs to the competent authorities. Now, speaking a little bit about the EUDAMED, the creation of this EUDAMED European database on medical devices is one of the key aspects of the new rules on medical devices. Okay, and it is both for the in vitro as well as the MDR requirement. So this EUDAMED would be kind of a electronic database that will provide a living picture of the entire kind of life cycle of the medical devices made available in the European market. It will integrate all the different electronic systems and process information about medical devices and related companies. For example, the manufacturers who have kind of uh, brought that device into the market. In doing so, EUDAMED aims to enhance overall transparency, including better access of information to the public and healthcare professionals, and to enhance coordination between the different member states in the EU itself. Now, this EUDAMED comprises of 6 modules, in which one of the aspects is vigilance and market surveillance. Apart from that, there are other modules as well. For example, the UDI, which is unique device identification, registration, about the notified bodies, investigational and performance guidelines as well. So there are various modules, but for us, from the vigilance perspective, the module with respect to vigilance and market surveillance is something which will help us in kind of reporting the SAEs on a timely basis on an electronic method. Currently, it's slightly difficult. The reporting has to be done manually to the NCAs, to the authorities. If the investigation is going on at multiple locations, multiple sites, then we have to report to multiple authorities at the same time. So it's kind of slightly complicated. But once the EUDAMED is fully functional, that will take care of all those problems. I hope I've answered that question.
I think it was very thorough. Thank you so much for that. All right, we'll jump to our next question here. This audience member is asking, this might, Dr. Tripathi. All right, this may be for you here, Garima. What is the third assessment of causality? I can understand temporal, biological, and re-challenge, but I'm not understanding the word. Can you assist?
Yeah, Sonia, could you just repeat the question once more? Yeah.
Sure, no problem. This audience member is asking, what is the third assessment of causality? I understand temporal, biological, and re-challenge, but I'm not understanding the word challenge Dr. Tripathi is
And
using.
no. Okay, so the third assessment, the third cardinal principle is called de-challenge. It is once that the drug that is being given and it's withdrawn or its dose has been reduced. So then the response, it can be positive, like the event that was occurring when the drug was stopped has stopped. The event is not occurring again. That can be considered as a positive de-challenge. Yeah. So that the term is de-challenge and re-challenge. De-challenge is when the event that is occurring and the device or the drug is stopped and it's withdrawn or its dose has been reduced and the event has also been stopped. That is called a de-challenge. And once the dose, when the drug or the device is being re-administered or again given to the patient or the subject, and the similar, not the similar, but the same event occurs again, that's called a re-challenge. Yeah, I hope I was able to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We'll jump to our next question. Now, there's a whole bunch of questions coming in here, so sorry for the delay here. Just trying to multitask. Okay, let's go to our next question here. This audience member is asking, what are the MDCG, Medical Device Coordination Group guidelines?
I'll take that. Yes. So, medical device coordination group is kind of recommended by the MDR guidelines, Article 105 of MDR and Article 99 of the IVDR kind of suggests that there should be a medical device coordination group. Although the guidelines provided by the MDCG are not legally binding, as I have said earlier, but they are kind of provide great in-depth insight into the medical device guidelines. They provide a range of documents to assist us in applying the new MDR in accordance with these articles. They do present, when we go through the MDR directly, some of the sections, or I would say, most of the sections are not very detailed. So it's open to interpretation. So when we look at these MDCG guidelines, they present to us a common understanding, a logical understanding of how the MDR should be applied, on the day-to-day basis, on the need basis, or how it should be harmonized in terms of legislation. Okay, and then there are various, if you go to the MDCG guidelines, and we can share the link to it as well. There are various guidelines. There's a bunch of guidelines on all the aspects, on clinical investigations, on classifications, on CE marking, on the UDAMED nomenclature. There's everything there. A lot of guidelines are still being into work in progress, but as they are being released, they are being useful in terms of how we interpret the MDR, how we implement the MDR. So uh, that's about the MDCG guidelines. There are various guidelines. Each could be, we can take a kind of 1 hour session on each of them. So it's kind of that vast. But yeah, that helps significantly in understanding and implying and implementing the MDR in a more harmonized manner. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm just here busy in the background here getting all these questions through to you. Okay, here is our next question from our audience member here. How has the MDR implementation deadline been extended? Who would like to take that one?
I'll take that again. So this very recent development which has happened, but it has a background to it. It has a backstory. It has a background to it. So kind of implementation of the MDR guidelines have not been easy. Although we have made some progress, but still, with the deadline, the due dates approaching, it was not up to that mark where it was expected to be. Initially, these guidelines were published in 2017, became applicable in May 2021. But considering the challenges being faced in complete implementation and to avoid medical device going off the shelf, which was again a challenge, and because of non-compliance on aligning to these MDR regulations, EU plans to extend. Actually, a decision has been taken to extend the due dates or the implementation dates for these guidelines. So and it's kind of this is important to understand that despite considerable progress which we have made over the past years since the guideline where we started implementing the guidelines, the overall capacity or the confirmation or the conformity to the notified bodies still remains insufficient to carry out the tasks which are required by the MDR. In addition, a lot of manufacturers are not sufficiently prepared to meet the strengthened requirement of the MDR by the end of the due dates or the transition period, I should rather say. So this is threatening the availability of the medical devices in the EU market. If they are non-compliant, they might be taken off the shelf, which is kind of if the certificates expire, the manufacturer, they will no longer be allowed to place these medical devices in the market, and then this will result into a shortage of medical devices, putting patient safety at risk. So it is also likely to implement the to impact the innovation, the business activities, the it will have a negative impact whatsoever on the overall medical device sector. Also, COVID-19 has been not of any help while we were implementing. During the pandemic, again, it slowed down the audits, the other aspects of it of implementation. So because of that, also it got slowed down. That is one aspect. But yeah, the overall goal of this extension which has been sought is to maintain patients' access. That is what is most important. The patient needs to have access to the medical devices. That is important. And as we do that, the transition to the new framework, it is maintaining the availability into the market is of prime importance. So as far as I'm aware, I think the timelines are being extended to December 2027 for devices with higher risk, and till I think 2028 December for devices with medium to lower risk. And this is the timeline which has been proposed and will be implemented to kind of ensure that all the manufacturers who are marketing their products, the devices into the EU market, kind of get aligned. And then probably this is the time, this will be the last time when the extension is being provided. It has been difficult to implement MDR. It's kind of very vast. People have struggled, but as I said earlier, with real world experiences, and with the logical approach which we need to take, that's the way. And even though the extensions are being provided, the best approach is to get aligned to the MDR regulation. Sooner the better for everyone.
All right, thank you very much for that detailed answer there. I'm going to jump to the next question. This looks like it may be our last question. So remember, audience members, you can send in your questions using that questions window. And here it is. This audience member is asking, what is the difference between an incident and a serious incident with a device under the MDR? Who would like to take that one? Arik?
Yeah, I'll take that question. So
Okay.
it's a good question. It's a good question. And then for those who are not aware, I think in the device setup, in in the post-marketing setup, basically, we use the term incident or a serious incident. In the clinical aspects, we still use the term the SAE. And there are unanticipated serious adverse device effects and other terms as well, but yeah, there's mostly this term incident is being used in the post-marketing setup. And then again, the main difference between an incident, and it has to be having a relationship with the medical device, the incident which has happened. The main difference, as I was saying, between an incident and a serious incident is the severity of the related health or public health outcome, okay, or potential outcome linked to an issue with a device, which is in the market, already available in the market. An incident is any malfunction or deterioration in the characteristic, or the performance. It could be performance of a device which is being marketed. It could be use error. It could be ergonomic feature which is which not working. It could be inadequacy in the information which was provided along with the device. It could be any undesirable side effect which is associated with the device. Okay, so incident in general is not reportable as per the MDR, okay, to the authorities. However, incident must be documented. We need to document all the incidents, and then keep them in the safety database. A serious incident, however, is an incident that has in addition, to what I have said, leads to potential, serious public health threat, or significant, health or public health outcomes. More specifically, if we talk about it, serious incidents are subset. These are subset of incidents itself that directly or indirectly they have led or might have led to death or temporary or permanent serious deterioration in the health of the patient. Or it could also be one of those scenarios where it has happened in multiple patients and poses a serious risk to the it could be a public health threat as well if this is found to be in multiple devices which is being marketed. And then these serious incident has to be reported to the competent authorities, all of them, in a timely manner. I hope that answers.
I think it should. You're very detailed with your answer, so thank you very much. I'm sure audience members do appreciate that. Okay, and with that, it looks like that was our final question. So I will now like to thank you, Arik and Garima, for answering those questions, and thank you, audience members, for sending your questions in. We have reached the end of the Q&A portion of the webinar, and if we couldn't attend to your questions, the team at Veranex will follow up with you after this presentation. And if you have any further questions, please direct them to the email addresses that you see on your screen, and there's one there for Arik and one there for Garima. So please go ahead and utilize them. Okay. All right. So now thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from X Talks with access to the recorded archive for this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is appreciated as it will help us to improve on our further webinars. Now give me a few seconds. I'm going to send you a link in your chat box and you'll be able to review the recording of this event with that link and also share that link with your colleagues once they register for the recording as well, and get even more out of today's presentation by downloading the supporting materials that are available under the Handouts tab, and we have two there for you. So please go ahead and check that out. I encourage you to do that. Now, please join us in thanking our speakers, Areg and Garima, for that great presentation. It was very insightful, so thank you very much, speakers. And there they are. Okay. We hope you found
Thank
this
you, Sonia.
webinar informative. It has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator. On behalf of the team here at X Talks, we thank you for joining us. I'm Sonia Hunt. Until next time, please take care and bye for now. Bye, everyone. Bye, Arik. Bye, Garima. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.